So ACG is the Association for Corporate Growth. It's a nationwide organization, trade organization focused on M&A deal makers, and there's a Cleveland chapter, which is where our members are participating. Women in Transactions then is a subset of ACG, and our content and networking is geared towards the women deal makers in our networks. And so it's really just a very dynamic group of individuals, and we've created a panel here today bringing you content that we think will be very relevant to what we're all experiencing. We've got Stacy Feiner, who is going to give a presentation sort of on the psychology of, sort of the landscape today and how we can move forward. And then we really wanted to feature two women business owners, Valerie and Anne, Valerie of Yellow Cake Shop and Anne of Harness Cycle. And just wanted to really highlight how they have been able to adapt their businesses and really pivot in the face of what we're experiencing today. So with that, let me just go ahead and kick it off to Stacy. And again, welcome everyone, thank you. And maybe just one brief note too, as we go through the programming, Stacy's gonna give the presentation, and then we'll hear from Anne and Valerie. And then we're going to go into breakout sessions. So all of you will be allocated to a room hosted by either Stacy, Anne, or Valerie to just facilitate the networking and have a smaller group discussion. And then we'll welcome everybody back into the main room. Okay, and then we'll ask for your participation via the chat feature. I presume we've all become very proficient in Zoom. So if you know how to use the chat, you can submit any questions that you have for any of the speakers as we proceed through the programming. And we encourage you to do so. We'd really love to hear from all of you. Okay, so Stacy, with that, let's kick it over to you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Stacy, I'm going to make you the host.
Great, thanks. I'm getting there. Good.
All right. Stacy, as an added complication, you're going to have to admit people in the waiting room as well.
Okay. So I don't know that I can necessarily, oh, there we go. But then you guys see everything, right? Like that?
You know what, I'm going to share.
You should take the controls back, Julia.
Yep, I will share. I've got the, I have your presentation. We are.
Okay, and I'll just let you know when to switch them up.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody for being patient with that technical difficulty. And good morning. I'm really excited to be here. Let me just see if I can get back to see what you guys are seeing. I'm sorry about this. Just, okay. Okay, we'll just leave it at that. Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'm excited to be here. I thought it was Monday, but it turns out it's Tuesday. I was really happy to have an excuse to dress up for everybody, and I'm glad to be here. So today we have a really nice kind of panel conversation. I'm going to start with a general conversation about psychology, and then Valerie and Anne will talk more specifically about how they are using all of their psychology and their physical strength to run their businesses through these difficult times. So starting with words matter. Words matter to our health because words create a reality. And I love to ask this question at the beginning of presentations. It's, did you know that the sun does not rise and the sun does not set? The sun does not rise and the sun does not set. In fact, the sun doesn't move at all. The earth does all the moving. But over the years, since childhood, since day one, we look at the sun and we look at the earth and we see the sunrise and the sunset. When we talk about our reality with the wrong reality, it kind of perverts our thinking. So I want to just dig in a little bit to the words as it pertains to the coronavirus. The same is true for the concept that people don't like change. Well, in fact, we're human beings and we are built for change. There's been a long 40-year campaign in the business community that teaches us that we don't like change. When we hear it enough, it actually becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I'm here to say that we're built for change and we adapt very quickly to change. What we don't like is we don't like change, prolonged change, the uncertainty of change, specifically the prolonged sense of change that we don't know when it's going to happen or when things are going to improve or we're going to get to kind of a new normal or a new next. And it interrupts our natural ability or desire to adapt. Now, there are a few cool concepts that I've kind of just introduced, the sun and change, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about the different emotions that are pertaining to, I'm sorry, let me just get my rhythm here, pertaining to the crisis that we're currently in. So let's look at the words that we're using for the crisis. And I'm asking all of you just to think about this for a second. Do these two sentences trigger different emotions for you, thinking about words? It's been 8 weeks of social distancing so far. We can expect 8 more weeks of social distancing. Versus, it's been 8 weeks of physical distancing. We can expect 8 more weeks of physical distancing. So the change up is the word social distancing versus physical distancing. In fact, we are not social distancing, and the concept of social distancing is so far removed from our human nature, our needs to be connected and have a sense of belonging, that the more we talk about social distancing, the more we pervert our understanding of what is happening during this period. We are physically distancing, not socially distancing. So I encourage you to start using words that are more accurate to the experiencing that that we're each having, and shape your mindset in more accurate. Use words that are more accurate to shape your emotional well-being. So words matter to emotional health because words shape our reality. And so ever since I've been working as a psychologist and working with clients, I've kept my old tattered college dictionary and thesaurus, that combination that I got for my college, for my high school graduation. I brought those books to school, and I pull those 2 books when I'm in sessions with clients to help them find the words to better express their feelings. We are so limited with the words that we have to express feelings, and we shortcut all the time, which is a big reason that we have interpersonal conflict, having nothing to do with our personalities not matching or our missions or our drive not matching. It's that we're not using good enough words, accurate enough words to express ourselves, and we get misunderstood very quickly as a result. Anyway, it's important to use the right words to express ourselves. Now we're in the face of this coronavirus and we're experiencing things we've never experienced before. Imagine how difficult it is to find words for this experience. Imagine, as you all are experiencing, so you can imagine for everyone, the challenge that we're having putting words to our experiences. And that can increase the level of stress that we're feeling. Again, our emotional state improves exponentially, especially in the face of the unknown, when we're able to express ourselves so that others can understand us and understand where we're coming from. Okay, Julia, next slide. I think we are about 100 people strong. Julia, whenever you want to move the slide forward.
Stacy, would you please make me the host, and that way my screen will share?
Yeah, I'm
your control bar at the bottom.
But I have this strange view of the, let me see if I can go here. This is very strange, Julia.
Check to see. So at the bottom of your window, there are the controls.
So let me see. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here I am, everybody. Julia. Okay. So you'll advance my slides. And
I will. So, hang on one second.
Good. Okay, well, I'll keep talking.
Go for it. So we should be on the mindfulness screen slide.
Yes.
Got
Yes. So listen, everybody, we are about 100 or more strong right now on this conference. So congratulations. Thanks everybody for making time for yourselves and for each other. I want to give lots of gratitude to Margaret and Julia, Sarah and Trisha, Valerie, and Anne for bringing this program to life. So here we come, right? We're settled into our conversation. I want to invite all of you to use this collective mindfulness in such a way that shifts us from an anonymous group to an intimate community. The way we're going to do that is if you're willing to take a deep breath and breathe out, exhale, take a moment to settle in to the conversation, to feel the chair underneath you and the weight of the chair, yourself in the chair, maybe the back of the chair on your back, and just take notice, take a deep breath, maybe close your eyes just for a moment and notice the sensations of where you are and why you're here, what mood you're bringing to us, and what you hope to receive today. So we have a lot of valuable ideas that we're going to be shared, people putting a lot of their passion into the work that they're doing. And so I want us to be receptive and open to the generosity and the gratitude and the emotions that we're all bringing to each other today. We all made time for each other. So let's bring our best selves and be mindful that when we understand where each other's coming from, we can be more empathic with each other. We can be more forgiving when there are miscommunications. We can be more attentive to giving each other, accommodating each other. And that's how we turn a group into a community. So let's go to the psychology slide. And let me share this with you. There are 50, very quickly, just to orient you to the science of psychology. Psychology is wherever people are, psychology is. Wherever people are involved, psychology is involved. There is a science, and there are 15 different and unique disciplines of psychology at play in business all the time. We see 3 in particular in business because we can see them. We're very quantitative in nature in business. So we see the psychometrics, the assessments that give us scores and give us measurements of how people are showing up and behaving. We use behavioral sciences, and we also use developmental psychology because we can see that people grow from one age to the next. They grow from, early in their career and they advance in their career. So we can see developmental, we can see behavioral, and we can see psychometric. 15, but there are 12, 13 and more disciplines of psychology that are invisible to us and we don't have access to. And my job as a business psychologist, deploying psychologists to your companies, is to help you see this invisible science at play so that you can access it and direct it. Okay, the next slide. So now let's move from psychology to the facets of personality. There are multiple facets of personality that you show up with every day. Again, invisible, often invisible to us. And as a result of our psychology often being invisible to us, is many of us, most of us, don't know how to use our own psychology to our advantage. And imagine, as you look at this, how awareness, all of these things are at play at the same time, and creating this non-linear, random outputs or reactions that are complex. So awareness might bump into behaviors are bumping into identity, dreams are bumping into memory, and thoughts are bumping into beliefs. So all of these things are moving and bumping into each other and creating expressions of ourselves in different ways, unpredictable ways. Now, if you go to the next slide, you can imagine that when we show up with all of this complexity, right, and we bump into somebody else, now we have 2 people who are experiencing all of these things in motion. Imagine now 10 people and the complexity of moving from an individual to a group. Now imagine 100 people, which is what we are today. The complexities of all of our emotional dynamics at play in random, nonlinear ways, bumping into everybody else's emotional experiences that they are often unaware of. So a lot of the challenges that we have in business have nothing to do with the fact that we are not compatible or that we are inherently in conflict. The fact of the matter is we don't have a good enough understanding of the psychology at play to use it to facilitate our own growth and development, each other's growth and development, and ultimately this growth and development and the profitability of the businesses that we're in. So I just want to make sure that we continue to pay attention to the complexity. Now, one thing about the human condition is we are always in tension, always in tension. Tension is a necessity for growth. It's not a stressor, it's a natural tension between our individual selves, our own psychology, and the expression of our own selves, and the tension that we have with the need for belonging and acceptance. And there's a tension because the more individual expression we want or need or pursue, the more challenging it can be for the group, for our families, our teams, members of our community, our friends, to accept our individual expression. Because there is a sense of belonging and agreement, shared norms, shared belief systems, shared language, shared life experiences. So again, the more access that we have and understanding that we have to our psychology, the better players we can be in community as human beings with each other. Okay, next slide. So how do we respond now in crisis? Next slide. Let's look at this a little bit. These are the needs that drive emotion. I think it's a very good starting point for how to really understand the complex emotions that we're all having. We're having them at different degrees, at different times, in different ways. So it's not going to look the same necessarily. And even if it does look the same, our expression of how we're feeling about this crisis that we're all living in, while the expression might look the same, what's behind it? Remember that slide I just showed with all of the facets of psychology? What's bumping in to create that expression that might look like yours is very different. So what's behind the expression is different for everyone. I want to give a quick example. When I was just starting out as a psychotherapist before I shifted into business coaching, I remember a client came into work. Her mother had just died, and I asked her why she was crying, because I didn't want to assume that she was crying because she was sad. So that's maybe a common assumption that we would make when we see people crying, especially in light of her mother dying. And she ended up saying it was because she was mad. She was angry. So if I had moved forward with the assumption of her being sad, I would have missed her whole experience. So here we are with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If some of you took college in psychology in college or sociology in college, this might be familiar to you. And if you've explored leadership in your professional lives, this might look familiar to you. But if it isn't, it's a pretty easy illustration to explain. We have 5 basic needs, and they go from bottom up, and we can't really get to the successive need until we get the primary needs met. So it goes from bottom up, and we need our physiological needs met first: food, water, shelter, rest. These are the things that we need in order to bring ourselves to any other set of needs. We cannot function first or in any other level without our basic needs being met. And you can imagine that today, where our livelihoods are at risk, our air is poisoned, we are very primitive right now. So a lot of what we're experiencing is very primitive and at the very base of these physiological needs. an example of this is the toilet paper hoarding. It looked like very selfish behavior. How could those people be so selfish? But what was triggered is a very primitive need of protecting one's own basic needs and the needs of their family. The second level is we go up and we see safety needs. These are emotional and physical needs to be safe from harm, emotional and economic security. We also know that the quarantine has exacerbated dangers for people in families. Domestic violence has increased. The amount of people drinking at excess has increased. So the quarantine has really challenged some basic safety needs. Again, very primitive. So once we get our physiological needs met or settled and our safety needs met, now we can start focusing on our sense of belonging and getting our emotional needs met, intimacy needs met, and relationship needs met. And in isolation, although I just explained we're physical distancing, a lot of people are huggers. A lot of people need closer proximity to people than what we have. So again, this basic need of being together and having a sense of belonging and being connected is also being challenged. So you can see 3 of our basic needs out of 5 are being challenged by this pandemic. Self-worth needs, this is the 4th layer, the confidence and respect of oneself, to be able to have self-efficacy, again, to go out into the world and have purpose and generate meaning for ourselves. And finally, we get to self-actualization. And self-actualization is when all of our needs are met and we have the opportunity to focus on the greater good, to focus on things outside, to really experience our humanity. I've never seen this before, as I'm sure many of you have not. We have a foot both in the one extreme of physiological needs, this very primitive need, and we have another foot being stretched all the way over. I'm stretching my arms, maybe you can see me, all the way over into self-actualization, which is where we're thinking about the greater good. So we are being taxed. We are being stretched to have these feet in both experiences like never before. So the level of stress and the endurance that we need to have the stamina to withstand this amount of stress is now being further complicated by not knowing, having the uncertainty of how long we will have to manage this degree of stress. That's the uncertainty and that's the unknown, is how long do we need to endure? And that adds a huge level of complexity. So again, we could spend a whole course talking about Maslow's needs, but I share this with you so that you have some empathy and perspective of what you might be feeling and what others might be feeling. Again, empathy is a very important way to move through the pandemic and manage our stress with endurance. Okay, next slide, Julia. Thank you. I'm going to move quickly through this. I'm just going to do a quick time check. I'm kind of a little bit short on time, so let me move to the next slide if I could. I want to touch on focusing on building your own emotional endurance and the components of emotional endurance for this. So emotional endurance is a concept that is basically mind over matter. That despite the fact that physiologically we are being stretched, that we are feeling an incredible amount of stress. Stress is a physical demand on our system, our physical system. It puts us in hypervigilant mode, fight or flight, and it narrows our judgment. So stress narrows our judgment. A very important way to have to regain our sensibility and good judgment is to focus on emotional endurance. And there are 3 particular components this I'll just touch on is awareness. Awareness and self-awareness is the second level, but awareness is your recognition, your understanding, your acceptance and appreciation that you affect your environment, that you affect and impact the moods, the sensibility, the environment that others are living in. When you are aware of that, obviously you have the opportunity and the option for shaping how you impact others. It's, again, very important, this ability to be efficacious. Perspective is allowing others to have an impact on you, to allow the environment to impact you, and to pay attention to your surroundings so you can choose what surroundings you want to be in because they serve your well-being. It's allowing other people to have perspective and to have an influence on you, and to take that in and to mold or to shape or to reshape some of your thoughts based on the environment. And then options. Options have to do with speculation and anticipating how your decisions might have a ripple effect, several ripples out. So most of us can imagine the impact that we have 1 or 2, maybe 3 ripples out. The real challenge is to consider 6 ripples out, that you actually impact directly 6 layers out from you with your behaviors. So again, you have options for how you speculate and anticipate the future. Okay, next slide. All of this, again, with the anticipation that you are using this information to be more self-aware and useful in your environment and effective as leaders. So to bring it home and how to care for yourself, again, tension is necessary for growth. So what we want to do is help you stay high up on Maslow's hierarchy, right? So your thinking is straight. We want to reduce your physical stress so that you can think with good judgment. And we don't want you to confuse stress with tension. Tension is a necessary dynamic that spawns growth. So be very careful don't be careful, but pay attention to the difference, begin to learn the difference between stress and ways to reduce stress, but pay attention to the importance of tension that moves you forward in growth. So 5 steps for bringing it home. Visualize the course, okay? So visualize from today to a place in the future, who you want to be, how you want to take this learning to reshape, to improve, and to grow. If you have an outcome goal for how you want to improve through this period, you will be able to be in more control. So anticipate or expect or kind of chart out who you want to be. A good way to look at this is when you look at this, and I've used this with my children, if you look in 3 years or 5 years, put yourself in 3 or 5 years out and look back on this April 2020 and imagine looking back on somebody that you're proud of. So behave in ways, perform in ways, interact and engage in ways that you will be able to look back on in 3 years and feel very proud of. Pace yourself. Again, endurance. This is an endurance run. Pace yourself. Don't expect to figure it all out right away. Don't expect to always be able to manage your levels of stress. Sometimes it's acceptance that you're feeling stress. So pace yourself. There are lots of different ways to do that, but for today's purposes, imagine pacing this chart. Recharge routine. This is in the orange because I think it's the most important to create a routine for recharging. It doesn't have to be every day. It doesn't have to even build up a sweat. You might walk up and down your driveway, take more time outside, listen to music, move from right brain to right, give your brain some rest, move from right to left and left to right. When you're thinking, make sure you have time for creativity, and music and the smells of your kitchen can stimulate creativity. So make sure you find a way to create a recharge routine. And don't put pressure on yourself. Identify a couple of things, and when you need to call on them, like writing, maybe listening to poetry, maybe a podcast, maybe music, create those things that you can go to when you really need them. Or build them into your schedule regularly. Many of us obviously can do that as well. Mindset. Okay, awareness, perspective, and options. That's mindset. And then growth. Have a vision for yourself that you're growing into, and make sure if you want, make sure to be able to look back on yourself to be proud of yourself and how you perform to the best of your ability. Okay, next slide. Okay, so no, go back up to a slide called just with an if you would kindly. I want to let you know that I had conversation with the team in advance of today, and Anne and Valerie had such beautiful ways of talking about their story. I mean, beautiful, not at the expense of powerful, but beautiful and powerful. Just one more down, if you wouldn't mind. Julia, to the owl. One more. So earlier in the conversation with Anne and Valerie, I heard 5 very powerful emotions that embody the breadth of their leadership and their passion, their vision. I won't put words for it, they'll put words for it, but what I viewed as their leadership. And I think it represents women's leadership in particular, and our interest and our ability, our unique ability to reshape the future to be more of what we all need. And here are some words that I heard from them. Intuition. Intuition is our deep knowing about being on the right path. So in the face of the unknown, right, we don't know, so we can't draw on knowledge. What do we draw on? We draw on our intuition. And intuition will never steer you wrong. We just need to pay closer attention. It brings us to the right path. Connection. Connection is our confidence, is the confidence that we need to take leaps of faith to reach our potential. And we need to do that with connection, with the belief that others have in us and the belief that we have in our human potential. Capacity is the emotional space we have to welcome and include all things. Complexity, we are complex. All of our anatomy is inside and outside of our sight. Our counterparts can see all of their complexity, right? It's on the outside. Women are very complex. We're built to be complex, and we have very complex relationships, right? Because of our natural connection to humanity based on our ability to give life. This is our complexity. We don't take shortcuts. In a world that likes shortcuts, women don't take shortcuts. So complexity is our brilliance to consider the infinite possibilities so no one gets marginalized. And finally, our humanity. Humanity is our collective awareness to care about each other. And with that, I would like to welcome and applaud and learn from both Valerie and Anne. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Stacy. Valerie and Anne, we heard about creativity, we heard about physical activity, which I think is a perfect segue to both of your businesses. Anne, why don't we go ahead and start with you? Have you speak a little bit about where your business was pre-pandemic and how you have changed gears, no pun intended. And then Valerie, we'd love to hear about you and what you've been doing with your business and how you've really been able to turn and help the community while you've been able to make that pivot as well very successfully. So Anne, why don't you go ahead and speak about your business today?
Thanks, Trisha, and thanks, Stacy. Thanks all of you for joining us today. I see some familiar faces in the chat, some of our writers, Cheryl, Colleen, Sean. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to take a pause and reflect at this point, 6 weeks in. Also feels good to put normal clothes on instead of the leggings I've been wearing every day. But it's nice to be teed up with Stacy's brilliance and just thoughts around not just leadership as an entrepreneur, but we're all leading our lives right now in our families and what's the next right thing every single day. And I really believe that the success my organization has had over the last 6 weeks is due to the philosophy we've been culturally embodying for the last 7 years. We are an indoor cycling studio. So we have 2 studios. We've been in business for 7 years, and we're rooted in neighborhood development. And we do neighborhood development through movement together. But what's really different and unique about our style of movement and group movement together is it's rooted in positive psychology. We empower our pack. And so from the day that we train our instructors, we start with psychology. We start with the words that they use. So Stacy starting with this and saying, how are you going to coach this group of 45 people to feel empowered, not to do because you say, but to create and give them the tools to create their own experience in this room. And so it's interesting because the shift, while our business and what we've done is riding for 45 minutes on a stationary bike, our philosophy and our culture can flow. It can change. And that's what we've done, is we've stayed true to our values, and we've adapted in a way that still honors our values and our philosophy of how we connect and support and create value to our neighborhood, our local economy. We're doing everything very intentionally, and we feel really sound in our ability to be an anchor for the community that we serve. So, you know, on paper, COVID-19 probably looked detrimental to my business. We are 100% brick and mortar as of March 12th, 2020. So could be devastating. I say March 12th and not March 15th because we made the elective decision to close our studios in light of what we were learning about the concept of flattening the curve. So early on in that week, I was working with my team to figure out how to better sanitize and clean to make sure that our riders would not be susceptible to transmitting COVID-19. And it was about 2 days into that week that I read an article from NPR on flattening the curve, which is something we're all familiar with now. And instantly, and Stacy spoke to intuition, my gut knew this well before I even read that article, but I said, we care about our community, not just the community we serve, which is white and privileged and affluent and has jobs. Our community is not at risk. The people that we serve in our studios, our greater community of Cleveland, which is really what we're rooted in, being a driver and an anchor and a developer for everyone that we impact around our brick and mortars, they're at risk. And so we need to close. And so that, I think, started this journey from a very empowered space that was rooted in values, rooted in intuition. And it set us on the trajectory to have, right now, we've had our 2 most successful sales months to date. And we've been a really successful business for the last 7 years. So days within closing, we initially just kind of settled into the reality, focused on our basic needs, making sure our team was safe, everyone was home, everyone was informed on next steps. We sent an email out to 10,000 riders. I did a video explaining what slow the rate and flattening the curve was, which had a really powerful impact on our community to say, this is important, stay home. And then I spent the weekend kind of just listening and checking in with what I felt would be next, and realizing that we had an opportunity here to still create some value and be an economic driver in the midst of this, rather than just shutting down. So I started making phone calls around the country and started sourcing used bikes. So contacted a guy that we've purchased bikes from before in Altoona, Pennsylvania, had found via eBay another reseller in North Carolina. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna take this risk. And I bought 40 bikes without knowing who they were going to yet. And 2 of my full-time employees who were managing the brick and mortars rented a U-Haul, started driving to Altoona, Pennsylvania. I created an online Shopify e-commerce, and before they even came back to Cleveland, we had sold all 40 bikes. So fast forward, now 2 months later, we've done this several times, and we continue selling equipment. By the time everyone had those bikes in their homes with our first batch of local deliveries, which, by the way, it was incredible for our team to we're just doing porch deliveries, but to see people's faces as this U-Haul pulls in their driveway and drops the bike off at their step was not only great to get this bike, but people were just so excited to have harness in their home. And we're so proud and happy to be able to create that. But what I was going to say is by the time people had them at home, we had also launched and produced our first set of recorded classes. So that's our focus now, is supplying bikes and continuing to create this online platform. Those are kind of our two areas that we've pivoted, and those are our main revenue streams right now. We also have been doing online sales for our clothing and inventory. So we've sold through all the inventory that we had in our studios, and actually our main source is Lululemon, who's not actively shipping products. So now we're pivoting again, and we're starting to work with local makers and brick and mortars that are closed. So we'll be creating, what we have done is like kind of become this logistics company and really navigated e-commerce and local delivery. So we're going to be launching in about a month an online local marketplace. So you can order in one place a lot of products from local makers and brick and mortars, one checkout, one pickup. So we're excited to be able to partner with a lot of brick and mortars that are still closed, or even if they're allowed to open in the coming weeks, can't support that sustainably. And then last but not least, we're going to be offering our virtual platform up to other studios. So this won't be just an online platform for Harness Cycle. I made the decision as soon as we launched it not to call it Harness Cycle Online, because I wanted the ability to be a platform for other studios as well. So we are going to be launching what's called an I Fund Women campaign. The platform is crowdfunding specifically for women-owned businesses to start or launch a new vertical debt-free. So it is a reward campaign. So when you fund our campaign, there will be a reward tied to it versus an ROI on your investment. But that campaign is going to help us partner with other studios and begin to produce higher quality videos live stream. And this will become a virtual collective space for local Cleveland movement studios. So if you are interested, I'll just give a quick plug for it. If you're interested in learning more about that campaign or funding it, you can go to harnesscycle.com/invest.
That's
that's
awesome.
all I wanted to share with you guys. I also, my husband is a Cleveland firefighter, and I'm a mom of 3 kids, one of which I'm trying to figure out homeschooling, which we are failing tremendously at. So this is definitely, I'm giving you the highlights of our success story, but we've had some really hard days, and I just want to acknowledge that we're going through this collective experience that we need each other, and you might have a great day when someone else is having a bad day, and it can flip. But I think that there's some calm in that. Oftentimes when we go through trauma, there's like a secondary trauma that we're experiencing alone. And I think right now something that we can really ground into is that we all can relate to this at different levels for different reasons. So I'm proud to sit here and share the story with you of how we've been able to pivot the word of the year already and create success for our business. But I want you to know that I'm having many of the struggles you are as moms and wives and in the household of a first responder. So hang in there, and we're gonna get through this together. It's a ride, and just kind of keep your eyes open, see what every day brings.
And thank you so much. I think we'll follow up with everybody who's registered for the event for links to both of your web pages for ordering and for funding. Absolutely, I encourage everybody here to be able to help support you in your initiatives. I think it's wonderful what you're doing for the communities, and we really appreciate it. So Valerie, why don't we go to you? I see you're wearing your sweatshirt. I love it.
3 days now.
Yeah. Let's hear about you.
Yeah, thanks, Trisha. I'm so excited to be a part of this panel. ACG and WiT has been a huge supporter of ours, and we love doing events with ACG and WiT. So this is a unique way of collaborating, and I'm more than happy to be here. So yeah, like Trisha mentioned, I am wearing one of our sweatshirts. It says wash, love, or wash, rinse, love, repeat. I am wearing it as a dress because I only take the sizes that are left over. But anyhow, so when the pandemic kind of first started creeping into our lives in early March, we were gearing up for the busiest season of our year, which is retail and trade show season. So I would say 85% of our business is direct to consumer or via wholesale, and it's physical shopping with our clients. We do 3 to 5 retail or trade shows a month where we're traveling to Chicago, DC, San Francisco, Minneapolis, all over. And we pay thousands of dollars a month in our booth fees. Some of these shows are really high-end at convention centers. Some of them include union labor. I mean, they can be anywhere from $1,200 to $4,000 for a booth, and that's not including accommodations and travel and tollways. And then we have inventory that we prepare for these events. So we had been preparing inventory, from January to March, and in between that time we had also been traveling. And when we heard of the developing news and we realized that slowly a lot of our shows started getting canceled, we even had we were on our way to Atlanta. We were over halfway there driving to Atlanta when the show was canceled on us. And we had to turn right back around and come back to Cleveland with our van full of our gear and nowhere to sell it. And we didn't really know what that meant for us and for our future. And it was a really scary thing, like that moment when you get a pit in your stomach and you're nervous. I think when I was on Project Runway, we called it bubble guts. And that's how I felt. I had no idea what the F I was gonna do, and I knew that I had some savings from our business. I'm pretty frugal. I'm Latin American, so I can really stretch a dollar. I had some money left over from holiday, and we had done really well at some shows in January and February. And luckily, or not so luckily, one of my employees had, taken a leave of absence because she wanted to focus on her wedding planning and her photography. And so, all I had to do really was just figure out how to pare down and how to pivot. And for about a week and a half, I just wallowed and I cried and I just watched like every show on Netflix, and I just wallowed. And then my husband and a friend of mine who's in marketing was like, you should still create and you should still really try to focus on your online sales. And to me, that felt like a very big mountain to climb because I wasn't motivated creatively. And I had already spent so much energy making all these garments for these events that we couldn't sell. And I just didn't feel like putting more stuff into the world. And, personally, our online sales, it was a small part of our business that was growing each year, but it was a huge mountain. And everyone and their mom was selling products online. I didn't want to contribute to the noise, and I didn't know how we could even contribute. But so I did. A friend of mine said, what if you start making casual wear and some comfy sweatshirts? People are going to be living in pajamas for the next 8 weeks. Why not? And my husband and I thought of these really fun and witty phrases like distance casual instead of business casual. That's been our bestseller to date. And then we have another one that says love your neighbor, but it's kind of abbreviated in a funky modern way. We also have another one that says 6 feet, please, thanks. That one's also been really popular. And so we thought it was kind of cool. It was a way for people to express how they're feeling and express themselves when they're out in public just by wearing a sweatshirt. And what we wanted to do further to really make an impact with clothing was to give a portion of each of our sales to the food bank. So we were giving $5 of each sweatshirt to the food bank. We were using organic cotton. We were even getting them locally printed by one of my neighbors who lives here in Gordon Square. Her name's April Bleakney. She also was hit hard by the pandemic, as any small business who's independently owned is. And we've been keeping her employed since March. We're on our 6th batch of sweatshirts and t-shirts now, and we've donated, I think, almost $2,000 to the food bank. And it's just been incredible to see that kind of response and growth. People are gifting them to their friends, they're gifting them to their moms, they're gifting them to themselves. And it's been really cool to see. And it's fun to cook up these ideas. And we really just use a simple method of Instagram. We don't buy the blanks beforehand. We take a poll on Instagram, we get people's input, and then we put them on the website based on the best, the most popular votes. And then we take orders, and then we order the blanks, and they're done within a week. And because of this pandemic, our screen printer is able to be quick, and our supplier is able to ship fast, and this actually works. So we're minimizing our waste, we're providing relief to the food bank, we're providing income to our local artists, and we're also able to sustain ourselves. But that was only a small piece of the puzzle. We realized that there was a call by sewers and makers to provide homemade cloth masks for first line healthcare workers and for the general public. As the weeks grew on, we realized that the general public was being asked to wear masks as well. And I've never sewn a face mask in my life until 8 weeks ago, when I received some masks, and then I received a call from Case Western Reserve's Think Box, and they wanted to work with me to develop the best, most effective mask possible for university hospitals' call for their 100,000 masks. So we developed a mask. We used the Olsen mask pattern design. It was a mask that was created by a nurse in the 1930s in Utah. It's been widely tested. It's one of the most effective. It's not the typical pleated design or the accordion style. It's the mask that has a center front seam. It kind of looks like the mask that Master Shredder wore in Ninja Turtles, if that rings a bell to anyone. And then it has an interior pocket on the inside. So it's 2 layers of fabric with an interior pocket, so you can place a filter, a carbon filter in there for an added layer of protection. Now, because there is a worldwide shortage of elastic, like regular braided 1/4-inch elastic, you cannot find it anywhere on the market. And if you do, it's ridiculously expensive, like 3-4 times the cost, and it takes months to arrive. And we didn't have that kind of time. So we started using hair ties, just regular everyday ponytail holders. And I literally spent, I think, $5,000 on Amazon for over 25,000 hair ties. And we've just been using those, and they work in a pinch. You know, sometimes they do snap, but we also found a really great solution to that. We just purchased over 1,000 shoelaces, and a really quick and easy way to modify any mask is to thread a shoelace through the side channels where the loops are. And that allows you the option to convert it to a tie back. So, you know, out of the thousands of masks we've delivered and shipped and sent to people, we've maybe had a handful of issues or challenges or you know, replacements or complaints. But for the most part, I mean, just this morning, you know, I got an email from a woman. Some people, I think, you know, and I chalk it up to the tension of this situation we're in and the anxiety that we're living in currently. Some people can be really gruff, and they can be really curt and abrasive, and they can forget who they're emailing, and they don't realize that we weren't mask makers before this. There's no manual on how to be a mask maker provider unless you were doing that already. And we've learned very quickly. We went from 8 sewers to 35 sewers on our team to provide these masks. You know, we've made 3,000 masks for all Dave's supermarkets. We are working on our 4,000th batch of masks for RTA, for all of their employees. We are making masks for small to medium-sized businesses. We are currently finishing up an 8,500 batch unit for the Lutheran Ministries homeless shelters. We've fielded over 5,000 mask requests on our online shop alone. And I think people sometimes don't realize that they're emailing a person on the other end who's very tired, who's running this by herself and I'm managing 35 sewers, and we do drop-offs 3 times a week, and I'm paying everybody, you know, by PayPal and Venmo, and money's coming out as fast as it's going in, and my living room and my house is turned into like a USPS ship station. And I've learned how to be more gracious and understanding with my customer service. I have scripts for each scenario. So if a person hasn't received their mask, I send them that script and I add a personalized touch. If they're not happy with the fit, I send them the video of how to modify it with the shoelace, and I explain to them, you know, the shortages and how, you know, we're very sorry for that, and if we can offer a refund or a replacement. I had a client who said that his masks didn't fit him, but they fit his wife and his children and his daughters, and he was happy to donate his masks. And so I said, you know what, I'm gonna give you 2 of our masks from the RTA batch because those are bigger, and I'm gonna send them to you on the house. And he was floored, you know, and it was a simple thing I could do to make sure that he was safe. But just this morning, I had an email from a woman that was like, your masks are unwearable, they're awful, I hate them, I've wasted my money, very disappointed. So I wrote her back and I explained the situation. I offered recourse, what I could. But literally within minutes, I received another email from a woman who was a nurse who works in a hospital. And she was like, I can't tell you how much I love your mask. I feel so protected now. We were down to 1 mask a month for each of us, and she's ordering more. And it just feels really good to know that while we can't please everyone, we are providing a service, and we are helping to protect our community. And I've even started fielding phone calls from the elderly. I can't tell you how many phone calls I get from 6 a.m. to midnight of Carol Ann and Frank Scaduto and Terry, and they don't know how to work a computer. They don't know what PayPal is. They don't feel comfortable using their credit card online because they think that it's a scam. And so I have to field their requests, and I have to input the orders for them. And it's the things that we're having to do now to make sure that people are safe. But it's also keeping 35 women who are sewers employed. Our sewers are making anywhere from 100 to 600 masks a week. So they're making anywhere from $300 to $1,500 a week. And it's income for them to provide for their families, to buy groceries, to be able to pay their bills. And it's a really great feeling to know that just by quickly shifting and changing our mindset and learning to create a product that we didn't make before is helping us do that. We did not set out to make this our business model. We just started making masks because we heard people were doing it, and we actually donated the first 500 that we made. And I randomly started receiving money in my Venmo account from people that were like, I love that you're making masks. Here's some money to do that. And we raised like $2,000 without even trying. And so then I said, okay, maybe we should, do a buy one, donate one program, kind of like Tom's Shoes. And we've already donated another $1,500 to Lutheran ministries and other homeless shelters. So it's been really cool to see how we've created a business out of necessity. When I was on Project Runway, the unconventional challenge was always the most feared, but it was my favorite. I loved the unconventional challenge, and I really thrived with it because when you're working with the same materials all the time and you're in a pressure cooker like that, you don't have inspiration. You can't listen to music or talk to other people or watch movies or look at magazines. And so for me, unconventional materials were inspiring because I was forced to think in a new way about a garment, and I could really shine. And I kind of feel like that's how this is for me right now as well, running my business. If we were hitting a wall with a revenue stream or hitting a wall on how to grow our business, we had to rethink things and recalibrate. And this pandemic, I know it's been a tragic situation for a lot of people and for our world and for our lives as we know it. But for us as a business, it's really helped us to learn and grow and try new things and do the things that we wouldn't normally do out of the ordinary. We hired a friend who needed a job to be our courier, and now she's delivering masks to your door for $18. We have a friend in Ohio City who has a boutique, and she offered to be our local pickup. We are offering carbon filters and shoelaces and hand sanitizer. So it's kind of a new and interesting time, and it's forced us to think out of the box, literally. And I'm so grateful for it because we have already. Our goal for this year was to make a certain amount of net profit in an increase from last year's net profit. And we've already reached that goal in just the last 2 months. And I did not set out to do that. We definitely are not in this to profit off of a pandemic. We were donating what we could at the start. And when we realized the need was so great and we were overworking ourselves, that's why I live in sweatshirts now, because there's just no time for showering or regular hygiene or trying. But we've been fortunate. The sheer volume is what has allowed us to bring in the revenue that we have, and that's going to give us more to build on once this pandemic is behind us. It will give us the funds that we need to donate more money where we can. It will give us the funds that we need to employ the people that we currently have for as long as possible. And we're currently working out ways that we can build mask making and keep that in our business model while we still continue to make clothes and while we still continue to provide the clothing that we provide to our clients. And that's something that, I never thought I would be staging a photo shoot with masks and our trench coats, but here we are, and it's kind of exciting. We're making novelty edition printed masks, and we're making embroidered masks, and it's kind of creatively inspiring. I didn't think that I would be inspired by that, but I'll take what I can get right now. So we're really lucky, we're really grateful, and I know that that our sewers are also equally grateful. So if you've bought a mask from us, thank you. If you haven't yet, I encourage you to. And yeah, I just recommend that you stay safe. Wherever you get your mask from, please wear it and stay safe. So, thanks.
Thank you so much, Valerie. I have bought a sweatshirt and the mask, and I will say I get compliments on the mask all the time. People are asking where I get it, so I definitely direct them to your website. And it's got a little pocket where you can put some extra protection. So I've done that too. But before we break out into sessions, and again, each room is going to be hosted by Stacy, Ann, or Valerie to hopefully facilitate a smaller group discussion and lend itself to additional questions. But before we do that, I'd like to just give Valerie and Ann an opportunity to tell us how we can help you, because you have done so much to really care for the ones around you and your communities. And so, ordering, how can we most efficiently help you today and then going forward?
I'll let you start, Ann, if you want to.
Yeah, I think that with this group, I would love, because you are in this world already, but I would love your support with our I Fund Women campaign, even if it's not funding it, but if you have any thoughts on how we can successfully launch this. So again, that website is harnesscycle.com/invest, and not necessarily fund, but I would love your expertise in how to push this word out that we do need funding for video production so we can support this line of our business going forward, as well as other studios locally. Would love your brilliance.
Great, absolutely.
Yeah,
Valerie?
I would definitely agree with that. I think feedback is always helpful. Anytime you can share anything on social media is also helpful. I think the biggest thing is really just education. A lot of people don't realize that, there are 1,000,001 different face shapes in the world. And right now we're making only 2 different size masks. Before we were just making 1. So it's really just about education on what you can do to how to wear your mask properly, and how you can modify it with a simple shoelace, or how maybe not to react so quickly to certain situations, but yeah, just sharing anything you can about what we're doing or what others are doing. It doesn't have to be us, it could be any local maker. And just making sure that you wear your mask, because I went to Target yesterday and maybe 20% were wearing masks. I went to Piata the day before and none of the food line workers were wearing masks. So I think the more we can do that, the better. And I know that some people are maybe not convinced that they do any good, but they really do offer protection up to 75 to 90%. So any mask is better than no mask.
Absolutely.
And of course, give us your mask.
Yeah, right. So I've been monitoring the chat. I don't see any other questions. I do see some orders have recently come through, so hopefully you'll see those as soon as we jump off. Please, everyone, though, stay on. Julia is going to now, I think, direct us to our room, and then we can reconvene then in just a little while. So you should see a pop-up on your screen that will direct you to your breakout session. Are we back in?
We are back.
Okay, how did everyone's sessions go?
It was great. It was really nice to connect with everybody in a smaller group setting, and I think we should all stay in touch and help each other through this.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree. I think, again, we will follow up with contact information for both Ann, Stacy, and Valerie. And again, I encourage you, I know it looks like some of you have already placed orders, but encourage you to support these women in their endeavors, because it is, sort of moving everything forward and everyone forward. They're touching their communities and our communities in so many ways. So to the extent we can be of service to them, absolutely give that consideration. So again, thank you all very much. If you would like to learn anything more about ACG or Women in Transactions, please definitely reach out to me directly, or you've got an email from Julia to join this session, and she can certainly put you in contact with me as well. But would certainly welcome all of you, if you're not already a member, to our membership.